Okay, great. Okay, so it is 8 p.m. sharp, and I promised you would start at 8 p.m. sharp, so we will start at 8 p.m. sharp. So welcome everybody to our webinar today, and we have Professor Dr. Christoph Lattemann with us, which is really an honor to have him here. I will tell more about him in a few seconds, but so far I quickly start what can you expect today, and also basically what are the communication rules today, because this is very important since we are many people in the communication room. So let me start with the agenda. So we have a very quick welcome and introduction. Then Professor Dr. Lattemann, he will give us a lot of insights into design thinking and his last, I would say, 15 years of experience in research and also applying design thinking with companies or with multinational companies internationally. And then we will give you a short introduction about the Innovation Coach, our postgraduate diploma with the Jacobs University. And after that, and this is very important, you have time to really ask questions. And we really want you to ask questions. I think, Christoph, you're already looking forward to questions, right?
Yes, sure, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
From Germany to this webinar.
Mm-hmm. Great. So let me quickly talk about the communication rule. So first of all, I already explained it. All participants will be muted throughout the webinar. Why? Because otherwise we will not be able to listen to Christoph or to Professor Dr. Lattemann. And secondly, we have the Q&A session. How you can ask questions is you have to raise your hand. So there is a raise hand function, so please use it. Once you raise your hand, I will see it and I will unmute you, okay, for the time asking your question, and then Professor Dr. Lattemann, he will answer, and then later I will mute you again. We will also have a poll question, and I will just let you know when we have it, and you will see it on your screen. It's very easy. And I would love to see you all participating in the poll question. And last but not least, the webinar is also recorded. So this is basically a default function by Zoom. And it's also that we can send it later to participants who were not able to participate today. All right, so let me just quickly check yeah, okay. So I guess you can all hear me. Maybe write a yes in the chat, so I'm sure you can all hear and see me, as well as Professor Dr. Lattemann. Christoph, can you say something again?
Yes, I can, yeah.
All right.
Sound is okay?
Yeah. Great. Okay. So, and you can also see my screen, that's right.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so what will you learn today? So first of all, we would learn like how design thinking can help your business actually to drive innovation and digitalization in a systematical way. I think innovation and digitalization is a buzzword right now out there. Many companies are doing it, but if you really know how to systematically do it. And I think that's where really design thinking comes in, and that's where we actually really grateful to hear how to do it. The second learning goal today is to really see the specific case examples from different companies, and I know that Professor Dr. Lattemann has prepared a couple of cases to really also see what's the business impact in that case. And then last but not least, it's how can actually design thinking, how can you leverage it in your organization? And that's also for you really to ask questions, okay? So if you want to know it, how can you do it in your organization? Ask the questions later on. Great. So I would give a very quick introduction about us, about Mulan Innovation Lab. So Mulan Innovation Lab, let me see. Yeah, so here we are. So our great vision for China and also for Asia is that we can really build, oh, here you go, so that we can really build an ecosystem of responsible, customer-centric entrepreneurs across Asia and Europe. So that's what does it mean, customer-centric? Customer-centric really means to focus on your customer needs and then translate it into products, translate it into services, translate it into your business strategy. So we are right now a network of about 10 really experts in the field. So we are all from different industry backgrounds. And at the same time, we basically have a very huge experience in customer-centric innovation approaches. So just for example, for myself, I'm from automotive industry. So I've been working about 12 years in the automotive industry, starting in engineering, but then later on moving to organizational development. And in that sense, I'm using now design thinking for organizational restructuring, for organizational development since almost the last 5 years. So I'm also in China since the last 5 years, so I do speak a little bit of Mandarin. And we are currently working with multinational companies here. And one of our latest projects is to develop a VR cloud campus for leadership development with clients, just as an example. So now our main person, or our main person today, is Professor Dr. Lattemann. So it's not about me, it's about him. How did I get to know him? It was, I think, almost 2 years ago. I met the president of the Jacobs University, Professor Dr. Katja Wind, at the HR Summit here in China. And she connected me to Professor Dr. Lattemann, and then we got into sharing what we are doing, and we get really excited about what we are doing because we are in the same field, and that's how the whole relationship came together. And today he is here, so let me share a little bit about his background. So Professor Dr. Christoph Lattemann, he is Professor of Business Administration and Information Management at Jacobs University. So usually if I would see you now, I would ask you how many of you know Jacobs University. So it's in the north of Germany. It's in a city called Bremen, and you could say it's the Harvard of Germany, or it has the vision to create the Harvard in Germany. So it's a very high-ranked university, Germany, and also with international acknowledgement. Professor Dr. Lattemann, he founded the DForge in 2012, and this is a so-called design thinking lab, which was the first one in northeastern Germany. And that's where he is. It's an institute where he's doing research on the one hand, but where he's also working with multinational companies and really working on real business challenges. His key focus is, on the one hand side, digital transformation, but also globalization in business. And I think what's very important to mention here is that he's currently leading a couple of innovation projects, even with the German Federal Ministry of Education and Science. Maybe he can let us know later what he is doing there. Let's see. And also important, I think, especially for our Chinese participants today, he's also the vice director of the Confucius Institute in Bremen, as well as basically the director for Jacobs Center for the study of China and globalization. So he really has a China focus. He's also traveling to China frequently. And now I think it's time for Professor Dr. Lattemann to start. And I would now change my screen to his presentation. Okay, Christoph, you are on stage now.
I'm on stage. Thank you very much, Elena.
Okay.
Thank you very much for the presentation, or for the introduction. I think the presentation today is not about me, but it's about digitalization and design thinking in particular. Mm-hmm. In the back, you see the DForge, our design thinking lab. Now it's empty because we have the presentation here, but normally it's crowded with students or with executives, and we do projects and we do trainings here. We do executive trainings. Then it looks a little bit different because it's then not only crowded with people, but really confusing when you come into these workshops structure-wise. But you will see that if you really participate later in one of our design thinking workshops. And I'm super happy to have Elena pushing this program because I think there is a great opportunity for us, for Germans and for Chinese, to work together and innovate. And we have two different cultures of innovation, and I think design thinking can bring us together. So this presentation is about design thinking, and I would like, before I start, to give you some pillars or tell you my pillars, what I see, what are the founding pillars of design thinking. Can you switch to the, yeah. So, okay, yeah, that is the one. Okay, so what is right now the situation in companies? I do projects on a monthly, if not on a weekly basis with companies, design thinking workshops. And the design thinking always starts with the design challenge. And you realize that companies are very product driven. So traditional industry companies think they have a product and they have to push this product into the market. What do they serve with these products is a value for the customer. But behind every product, there's a service. And we have to think about what is the service we offer from a company's perspective to serve the value of the customer. And with new, and now comes the perspective of digitalization into the game, with new e-services, with new devices, with new technology, we can even increase or enhance the service we offer as a value to the customer. So, and if we follow this kind of customer orientation and service orientation and digitalization, if you switch the slides, then you see we need to just put the picture from a different, or take it from a different angle. The angle is that we don't have to first think about what kind of products do we offer to the market, but we have to think about what is the value of the customer. So customer-centric innovation. And then if we find out together with the customer, co-creation process, what they need, what the needs are, we can develop a service, build on new technology, and make a product out of this. So that means attractive vendors, attractive companies in the future will create desired values or will serve desired values for the customer. And we can do that now since several years with digitalization. So we have two components. The one is service orientation. That means really thinking of what is the value for the customer and not product. We can with the internet, we can individualize our offers, so we can really attract to single customers our products and services. That means we can customize these products, and this brings us comprehensive solutions, which probably not only includes solutions which we can provide from the company side, but as well include, that is another component, other stakeholders. But I come to this point. So with digitalization, we have big data, we have artificial intelligence, which can really enhance our services for the customer. We have direct contacts, we have a direct and individualized dialogue, which is possible, what we have as well today. And we can, as I mentioned, integrate various vendors, various stakeholders in our solutions. Okay, so that is the first story, and that is what Elena said in the beginning, if you can switch the slides. And that is what David Kelly came about when he started his IDEO at Stanford University. IDEO is a company which is a branch from the research he did. He's an interior designer, and he came up with design thinking at Stanford University and said the future of services is user-centered. So that was already forward-looking, and he thought about services. We are still, and many companies are still not able to think in services and service providing. So what I would turn this is that the future of products are services. Services can be enhanced with technology, and they must be user-centered. And that is a core story. I was trained at Stanford University in 2008 for half a year in design thinking, and I worked for the HPI, that is the Hasso-Plattner Institute of Design Thinking, since 2007, when we started the so-called D-School, School of Design Thinking at Hasso-Plattner. And since then, I'm doing design thinking, so that is more than 10 years, 12 years. And it's really interesting how design thinking evolved, and it makes so much sense. And Hasso Plattner, at that time, the former CEO of SAP, said we need, in his company, we need this kind of design thinking because it's user-centered. Each and every phase of product development, of service development, we need to think of the user, and that is so important. So let's start with design thinking and what that is. So we are looking, if you switch this, so the main idea of design thinking is the way that we have to think about how designers think, and we have to bring in the designer's perspective into business. And that is quite unique. So if you think of who is the decision maker in companies, it is the business people. But if you put, let's say, if you build up a team to come up with a new innovation and you put 3 lawyers into a room, then you come up with a law book with new legal text. If you put engineers in a room, then you come up probably with somehow some kind of technology. So what we need to do is we need to combine different perspectives, various perspectives, and these perspectives are the viability perspective from business, the technology, the feasibility perspective from technology, and I would say the people's thinking, or the more thinking to the heart, the desirability of solutions. And that is where it comes to the experience innovation. So if we put, again, not only business people, but business and technology people together, we normally come up with process innovations. But process innovation is very technically driven and business driven. We don't want to have functional innovations only, which probably is a question of desirability and feasibility, people and technology. And we don't want, and that is probably the worst what we can come up with, is the branding. So business and people, the desirable, to create desirability. What we should do is we should detect what is the desire from the people out there, and then bring it to business and technology solutions. So bring the experience to the solution. So that is what it should be in the future. So design thinking is, if you take the next slide, design thinking has 3 major, from my perspective, 3 major aspects. It is the kind of methods we apply, it is the process we apply, and it's a mindset which is used in design thinking. Probably the easiest thing to understand is the process and the applied methods in design thinking. The mindset is a question of time. It takes a lot of time to get what design thinking is and to live design thinking. So the process starts in the middle. The process has sometimes 6 phases, others use 5 phases or 3 phases. There are other approaches of design thinking with 10 phases. But the basic idea is that we don't start from an idea. And as I mentioned, I talk to many, and I have many projects, and the companies, almost every time, if I hear about innovation in companies, then somebody from the CEO or the innovation team came up with an idea and then say, okay, let's do it. So that is, we start in the middle of the process with ideation, creating ideas, prototype them, test them, and then either we fail or we relaunch it in the market. But what we need to understand, or what with the new service, what we create in design thinking, is to understand what the customer wants, first of all. So that means we start from the beginning in understanding the customer, involving the customer in the product or service development. Probably we need to observe them, because sometimes customers can't express themselves. Build a point of view saying we start from the eyes of the customer, and then starting with the innovation. The old process is starting with what can we do, what is our products, what is our production cycle, what can we do. Here we start from the side of the customers. This combines different scientific and fields, which is social sciences, as well as engineering sciences, as well as design sciences. And that is the creative idea here, to think from the design perspective. That means open-mindedness. So now we are in the lower part, mindset, open, agile thinking, not thinking in 5-year terms, 10-year terms, but very fast, coming up with new solutions in a fast way, which are human-centered, which really goes from the heart, in multiple iterations. We are allowed to make mistakes. The best is to make mistakes in the beginning in the innovation process and not in the end, which is a normal process. Yeah, there are so these agile open-mindedness that is interesting. So the methods, there are more than, yeah, let's say more than 500 different methods you can apply in design thinking. Normally you use only for each and every phase, probably 1 or 2 different methods. So this just saying that is, we need to be experienced when we do design thinking. So it takes time. Design thinking is cannot be trained in 1 day, but probably you need half a year really to get it and to get the mindset. Okay, if you change the slides. So here again, okay, we can jump over, but here again, this is the design thinking process, with understanding the customer, observing what the customer is doing to get, probably you have experienced yourself that sometimes devices are not used for the original purpose, but for other purposes. So probably if you, just because I see it, the chair, sometimes people don't sit on the chair, but use the chair to keep the door open. Yeah. So that means probably they need they have different use for different devices. So and then define the point of view. Again, what is the customer doing? What is a single customer, typical persona, ideate, prototype, and test. So the engineering part. Good. If you go forward, I tell you some stories, give you some experiences how that works. So this is, so let's start with a story. This is an MIR, where for treatment for people to scan their body parts. And as you can see, this is, I think this is from General Electric, a very engineered thing. And it's function-wise, it really helps. But think about, and the experience here is you're normally in a very cold room. You have to sit in this tube for 20 minutes, keep calm. It's really noisy and it's scary. So think about the customer group of little children. If you switch, you see that, the switch of slides, you see that the customer group, there was an empirical analysis from the University of Pittsburgh's Medical Center, and they experienced that 75% of the little kids are not wanting and not willing to go into these tubes. So nice technology, but not user-centered. Not so there's no user for this when it comes to kids. So there was a design thinking. They asked, so this University of Pittsburgh asked IDEO, I think that was IDEO, to come up with a new solution. And they said, okay, let's first of all understand what kids are doing. So observe them. And so naturally, what are kids doing? They like stories, they like painting, they like color. But remember, the MIR was cold, was blue, there's no color, nothing about stories. And they ask teachers, they ask parents, what do you think about the behavior of people? If you switch the solution it's very simple, it's not rocket science, but the solution is, if you switch the slides, it is just the story. Look at this. This is a storyline from terrifying machine to a terrific experience. So you can tell the story for the kids. You are now sitting in a bus or if you go to another slide, it is even more amazing. This is a submarine. And if they tell the kids the story that they are now moving into a submarine, and if they are quiet, they they can see fishes and octopuses and so on. So this little story, this little paint and color on the machine brought kids to use this kind of device. So it's not rocket science again, it's just a question of a different perspective, the customer perspective, not the technology perspective. Or probably you can combine that. Yeah, if you switch, if you go to the next slide, there's another experience and another example that is from KLM. So the Dutch airline, the Royal Dutch Airline. And that was when there was big incidents. They came up with the design thinking idea when there was big incidents when the volcano in Iceland broke out. And for 3 days, there were no flights in Europe. So people stranded at the airport of Amsterdam, Schiphol. And luckily, the employees from KLM, they were so caring about the customers stranded at Schiphol Airport that they came up and they got so many insights from the customers, what they can do during travel, so that they came up with the perspective of what is the experience. I come back to it. Experience, think about the beginning, of the customer during his journey. And then they thought, what could be the future of the travel experience in the next years, and what does freedom looks like when traveling? So you all experience, you're international executives, you all experience traveling. So what are you doing at the airport? If you think about airport providers and airlines, they think about how can we fly from A to B and what is the most efficient way. But now this really turns into the customer's perspective and see everything from the customer, make the customer experience rich. So if you click and come with the next slide, you see that on Schiphol Airport, they implemented a so-called service design studio where all customers and travelers could just go there and make suggestions for improvements. So that was in the middle, really in the middle of the airport, and it bring everybody together. That means staff from KLM plus the customers. So co-innovation. So to understand how customers tick, what customer wants. Customers share their input with their travel experience, not only at the airport, but as well with the flights. And that was the basis to increase or to enhance the service from KML to the customers. And this took a while until staff took ownership of all the projects. So you need to train the staff to really understand that. But again, this incident with the volcano helps to understand to make this mind shift for the staff to understand, hey, we need to care about the customer. So it was one of the very nice examples of service design. So if you click, then you see the solutions, which we know now everybody knows these kind of solutions. Elena, can you click? Which is nothing else than, so what they do, okay, sorry, what they did is they try to understand the customers, they observe the customers on the airport, how they behave, they ask them what they want to do, and then they build typical personas. So that means CEO of a small, medium-sized company's SME, or a typical traveler, or a startup person who needs to have a creative working space during his travel. So that is these are the steps they followed, and the solutions are on the next slide. It is what you have today. So they came up with the idea of an electronic QR code-based boarding pass, which makes life really easier. If you click further, it is they came up with the invention of a wristband where you have a card and you have then access with the card to all, or which guides you through the airport from your, I don't know, rental car or from the train to the gates. It shows you where to go. You have entrance to everything. So a new device. And these are all ideas which probably this was not realized. Nevertheless, it gave idea and insights about how customers travel. What are their needs? Okay, so then we have another example, and this example brings us to the point how to implement design thinking, which is Procter & Gamble. Procter & Gamble was one of the companies first implemented design thinking. So that was years ago in the end 1990s, early 2000s. And so on the right-hand side, you see the innovations they came up with, a magic eraser, a cleaning device, or the electronic toothpaste, or Tide to Go is another cleaning thing. So, you know, Procter & Gamble is very famous for packed goods. And they had, they had really big problems and in the 1990s. Because retail stores had their own products and didn't sell anymore the products from Procter & Gamble. So their approach then at that time was to really to ask the customers, the consumers, and co-develop these kind of products, which you see on the right-hand side. So if you again click, then, oh, isn't there one slide missing? No, okay, good. So the story of Procter & Gamble was that kind, that they really had this problem that the products are not sold anymore. Sales dropped, margins dropped, and they had no chance to go on with their old strategy. So they hired a designer and made this designer as a chief design officer, so really high-end up, and then started to really bring design thinking into the company. That is because not just knowing about design thinking, what you probably hear now after this webinar, is not enough. Not even if you have one day design thinking workshop, is not enough. You need to do it. You need to practice design thinking, and then you need to be or live really in design thinking. If you always fall back into this, into the perspective of thinking about the product and not about the service, thinking about the company, not about the customer, thinking about your usual way of innovating and not thinking designer's way, it is useless. So we need really to be in design thinking. So if you switch, then I come back to the example of the Procter & Gamble example. So that was again back in the 1990s. As I mentioned, retailers courted shoppers with cheaper own in-house private label products. That means, Walmart came up with their own cheap in-house private labels and didn't sell Procter & Gamble, or they posted this, but didn't sell so many Procter & Gamble products anymore. So they came up with a solution, and that is normally exactly what normally then comes when companies think, how can we be more efficient to offer lower premium to customers while keeping margins? So it's always, how can we be more efficient while keeping our quality? But this is not the question. How can we fulfill? The question must be, how can we fulfill customer needs with our products or with our services? Probably we can offer a product service bundle. Probably this is something new. So the conventional business thinking is that company can be innovative or other way around, efficient, but not both. And the point is, I had several years ago a project together with the Lufthansa, so not KLM, Lufthansa, German air carrier, and they for years they had now the strategy of lean management, but lean management means more efficient. And if you follow this kind of logic, then you lose your innovativeness. And then they came up with using design thinking as well for this kind of opposing the efficiency looking perspective. Good. If you click, you can see the challenge Procter & Gamble had in the 90s. Again, they had this problem with the crisis, biggest crisis in 180 years, stock value dropped, the market share dropped, performance dropped, and now it's a question of what can we do. They hired a new CEO, Alan G. Lafley, and the CEO, if you click on, he hired and he said, okay, I need to change something. So he was really committed to change everything in design as a design organization. And that was one of his 5 visions he expressed. And that means design organization, thinking of design in the core, in the heart of the company. So he implemented a vice president for design strategy and innovation. So really highest level, not department level, or group level, no, highest level in the organization to bring design thinking in, to push design, the thinking of design, the perspective, user-centered perspective of design into the organization. So, and they hired experienced dynamic internal entrepreneurs, so not only one, several of them, to balance business and design. So just thinking of the business side is not enough anymore. Customers want more, and designers are very experienced and trained to think about how really to create customer experience. Okay, if you click on. So what did they do? First of all, if you do design thinking and would like to bring design thinking into the organization, then you must be clear of what kind of expectations you have and what comes up. So turning a company into really design thinking, or coming from a different customer perspective, customer-centric perspective, might take years. So we have companies here. After 3 years, we still experience, they fall back into their old patterns of thinking. So don't expect that you can do that within half a year or within a workshop of 2 weeks. That is not enough. So you need to train a lot of people how that is. In some companies like Philips is very famous, a Belgian company. They are very famous for design thinking. It took 10 years for them to include design thinking, or to really turn design thinking, the organization into design. So don't expect, again, don't think that you can do it within half a year. It might be, but it's unlikely. So expect problems if you do that. That is my experience as well with projects, that managers really don't embrace it, because it takes power from them and pushes power to the team, to others, and to customers. So they lose track, they lose their immediate sight. And you should use definitely external experts who help you to set things up. I doubt that it is companies per se able to do that on their own. Okay, if you switch the slides. Moreover, you have this organizational change, that what I said, so get help from outside. So that is what Procter & Gamble did. Hire talented designers. It doesn't need to be that these designers can do design thinking. It could also be that these are business people who are trained in design thinking. But my experience is better to hire designers, because they have a total perspective. They don't have the business perspective, and you need the design perspective and not the business perspective. So either design thinkers or designers, hire them, put them into the business. Okay, so last slide, only 1 more minute. No. Stay with the old slide. So assign designers to sit in business teams, really, so that they can really make an impact and have, tell others what to do. Implement external design board might be a solution to what Procter & Gamble did. So equip managers with skills and expertise in design thinking, demonstrate. Don't talk too much, just do it. Yeah. So start with design thinking and don't talk about it, because design thinking needs experience. Set up training programs, which we offer now, and make hands-on training, not just explaining again, not theorize it, practice it. And you will see that it makes changes. It will change people in the organization. Okay, so if you take the next slide, and that's then it. So probably what I see is there's a tremendous, here in Germany at least, and I have some European projects, there's a tremendous need for change in from a traditional firm towards, I would say, a design shop, or a design-driven, customer-driven, design thinking-driven company. And the difference are that we still think in ongoing tasks, permanent assignments. We define projects long-term. In 5 years, we need to reach this and that. No, we have projects which are short-term, which with short-term goals, where we see success, where we can present things to the customers and get feedback. very important. So define short-term items and projects. Style of work is in future more collaborative, more iterative. So going back and forth and not having the wait until it is right and then go to the market. That is wrong. So that takes too long. But I think, so again, when we talk about Chinese and German, Chinese are very good in this kind of iteration and collaboration. Creativity is a thing which needs to be involved, not rational because of efficiency. Mode of thinking is deductive, inductive, abductive. It is not, so this goes a little bit too far to explain now because we don't have time, but it's a different way of thinking, and designers learn how to think that, well, our problems which we solve with our products in the future, let it be cars, let it be transportation, let it be whatever, medical solutions, these are wicked problems. So we don't have only technology, we have different stakeholders, so different participations. We have the customers involved, we have the hospitals involved, and they all have different perspectives. So we don't have one solution, not the best solutions. So we need also to bring these perspectives in the company. So be open. Dominant attitude should be in the future, everything is possible, thinkable, and not make any constraints. Don't put bars in the heads of the people. Just tell them everything is possible. You can make mistakes, and don't think about, in the first instance, about budgets and constraints, because this prohibits creativity. And then again, solutions. It should not be how can we be more efficient or more effective. And there is no optimal solution. It is more about what ought to be, what might be our solution in the future. And that is the way companies should think. And it works. Again, it is SAP in Germany. It is KLM. It is Procter & Gamble internationally. It is so many companies who apply design thinking now and push these kind of philosophy into the companies. I don't say that the whole company needs to be turned, but a major part of it. Okay, so that's my talk. Thank you very much for listening. And maybe there are some questions for, I hand over to Ellen.
Right. So first of all, thank you very much, Professor Dr. Lattemann, for this very insightful presentation, and let's say also very comprehensive presentation. And I think you mentioned it several times. Design thinking is best experience if we do it, right? We can talk about it a lot, but it's really best experience if we do it. So let me ask you a question now. So I hope you're all still there. I mean, it's already almost 9 p.m. in China. So I would like to ask you basically to participate in the poll question. So let me start this. So I have 2 questions for you. The first one is, in your organization, so if you now think about your organization, is innovation a top priority of the board? So I think this is also something, and if you talk about innovation, it's really design-led innovation. I think Christoph mentioned it as well. He said, well, you know, if you want to do it right, you really have to prioritize it at the very top. You cannot do it like at the bottom, so it will just, yeah. So I can already see you answering. So the second question is, how many of those innovation initiatives are actually successful? Right, that's a very interesting result. So I'm still waiting a little bit because there is still some voting. Yeah. Okay. Right, okay, still 7 people have to vote. Okay, so I'm still waiting for, let me see, I'm still waiting for 5 people to vote, and I hope to have your vote here. Would be great to have the answers. All right. Okay, so let me share the result with you. So for the first question, in your organization, is innovation a top priority of the board? Very good, 61% said yes. If we go to the second question now, that's very interesting. How many of the innovation initiatives are successful? And here you answered 61% said success rate is lower than 20%. How can this be, right? We all prioritize it. How can it be? So let me share you some results as well from the latest research of a very great institute, CB Insights. I think you all know it. Oh, where is it? Okay. Oh, sorry, here. So when we look, so I think the answer you gave is very much similar to what actually the research said, and they actually interviewed 500 CEOs. So, and the answer why they are not very successful, those initiatives, is it's very simple. Most of the activities in companies are still ad hoc. They are slow. They are more short-term focused because many, especially many stock companies, they are shareholder driven, so they're more short-term focused, and they are insular. So that's most of the reason why they are not successful. And we were looking into this research and said, okay, basically, it could be different, right? And we all want to have it different because we need it. So in order to be still on the market in 10 years as a company, we really need to do it, and we need to change this behavior. So that's exactly why, together with Jacobs University, the DFORD, and Professor Dr. Latterman, we implemented the Innovation Coach Postgraduate Diploma. So why is it? Because just as Albert Einstein said, we cannot solve the problems by using the same kind of thinking we have been using in the past or when we created them, right? So we need to apply a different thinking and different methods and methodologies. Let me give you, first of all, an overview how this certification path to the Innovation Coach Postgraduate Diploma works. And I give you a very quick overview because I don't want to take too much time from your questions. So it's structured into 3 levels. So level 1 is really a foundation of design thinking. And as Christoph mentioned before, you cannot learn, even if we might think we can learn it in 1 day. But to really establish design thinking mindset, it takes longer time, and it only comes through practice. So even the 4 days of on-site training in the first module, which is happening in Shanghai, is probably not enough. So that's why we said, okay, along the journey, we create online group mentoring hours, as well as a practical project. So it's kind of the first practical project where you have to go into your organization and record a design thinking small introduction workshop. So it's kind of spreading the word in the organization. So when we move to the level 2, which is the innovation expert, so with design thinking, we understand how we get from insight to idea, right? How we get from insight to prototype. But then level 2 is exactly what Christoph mentioned. So we try to put, maybe it's a new product, it's an innovative product, or it's an innovative service, but we want to put it into a business model that's working as well, right? So this product should make money on the market. So that's why we go into business model innovation on the 2nd level, as well as service design. So service design is very similar to design thinking. It's a very similar mindset. However, it even focuses more on the customer experience and on the customer experience dimension. This is also 4 days training. Again, we include mentoring, and then it's about the 2nd practical innovation project that participants have to do in their organization. And then on the last level, and this is now very important that you listen, this will not happen in Shanghai anymore. This will happen in Germany at Jacobs University in the D-Forge. So Christopher is still here, great. So Christoph will also shortly show you around in the D-Forge. Maybe Christoph, you can walk around a little bit while I'm talking. So in level 3, it is about advanced coaching tools. So Christoph just mentioned you can actually use about 500 tools. In 5 days, he cannot teach you 500 tools, but he will teach you a couple of tools. And on top as well, group facilitation. Group facilitation techniques are so important in design thinking because you bring different people from different backgrounds, from different departments, from different industry backgrounds into one group, and they all have a different story. And now we have to bring them together into a room and innovate. So it's really important that you understand the dynamic of groups and how you can motivate them, how you can bring them together to work towards a goal. And what Christoph is teaching here, so Dr. Professor Lattemann, he is teaching this module. The final module is the Google Sprint method. For the last level, we include 12 hours of online group mentoring, and there will be one innovation project led end to end. So what does end to end mean? So this is really, you have to identify a business case already and lead this from end to end. So this means the best case is you actually bring it to the market, yeah? And as we said, the whole journey is accompanied by mentoring, because we know in the beginning there are a lot of questions, and when you go back into real life in the companies, in your teams, there will be a lot of questions and there will be a lot of challenges, and we don't want to lose you there. We really want to take you through the whole journey. Just quickly to mention, this is a public program so far. So this is an open program. This means different companies, different people from different companies can join in. However, we also provide this for as kind of an entrepreneurship program for companies. And this is then more customized as well. So my, I think, final slide for today, and then we go into questions, is almost my final slide. So if we talk about this kind of innovation coach, I think this is very important for you to understand, okay, who are actually the people in my company that are suitable for that. So this innovation coach is a catalyst for innovation. So what does it mean, catalyst for innovation? They learn the ability to bring the right and the left, the right and the left brain side together, or the right and the left brain of the organization together. And when we talk about the right and the left brain of the organization, so who is the right brain? So this is usually more design departments. This is often marketing departments. This can be HR department. And the left brain means engineering, finance. Who else do we have with a left brain or more left brain focused? You know what I mean. So bringing those two parts together in the organization, and this means catalyzing innovation. And when you look at those persons' 4 dimensions, or let's also say competencies, they should have naturally, or at least potentially, is on the one hand side, they should be strategic, systematic, and process as well as method oriented people. They should have creative confidence. Creative confidence, I think, is one of the key aspects to drive innovation in the company, meaning creativity is not enough, but you really have to bring it out. Only then you can do something with it, right? They should be anthropologists, meaning they should really be focusing on people behavior. Why do people do what they do? And today, I think they also need to be digitally savvy, since I think most of the innovations really combine product and technology as well, or new technologies. I think those are the people we are looking for in companies. And still, if I think about like work experience, we would recommend they at least have 5 to 8 years of work experience. So they really have some experience in the company. They're not just newly hired from university, because they also need to have a certain, I would say, way of communicating with people in the company, and certain level of confidence to communicate with people. Right, so then my really final slide for today. Christoph talked about also, so design-led organizations are not, it's not only fun to do it, on the long term, it really also impacts the balance sheets or the bottom line. And I think this is what you greatly can see here. So this is basically, this is a study, it's a long-term study over 10 years, where they looked at companies, design-led companies, basically on the performance level. So what they saw is that they, on average, do 211% better than companies who are not having this customer-centric and design-led DNA. So this is where we can clearly see, yes, it does impact. However, you need to be a little bit patient, because you will see it over a longer term of time. Right, then now, I will send to you the presentations, but I would like to give you now the time to ask questions. And if you're okay with that, we could do 5 minutes longer. So let me go into a different view now. So, great, so I see you. I see you all here. So if you want to ask a question, you would have to raise your hand now, and then I can unmute you. Okay, there's one question. Oh, great. So Martin, okay, it's from Martin Zerfas. So I will unmute you now. Martin, can you hear?
Okay, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, great. So
okay,
it's your...
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
So I work for one of these product-oriented companies we just heard about. So I work for Schaeffler, which is an automotive and a bearing designer company, automotive supplier. And my question would be, we're a very traditional product-focused company, and we're just learning more about services, about digitalization, and about design thinking in that respect. If, as you say, this is a change in mindset and culture, basically, of the company, is it, I'm thinking about a change management approach to bringing this kind of design thinking into the company. Now, the question would be, is this better done in a kind of a, I choose a business unit and try to work with one business unit, and then after that, maybe roll it out in the next business unit? Or is a change approach more successful maybe if I go into a function which then is cross-functional or across the organization? So in each business unit, a little piece of design thinking will be introduced, and hopefully that will then spread throughout the organization. So from a change perspective, change management perspective, what would be the more successful approach in your opinion or experience?
Should I answer?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Interestingly, we did a design thinking, or we had a workshop last year with Schaeffler. And I know that Schaeffler has a design thinking department, or they have a group of people who do design thinking. Are you aware of that, Mr. Zerfas?
Yes, I am. It's in Germany, and that is very far away. So China,
exactly.
We do have people. We do have people working on this, but we are in China. We are, I would say, management is more caught up in day to day than in this forward-looking, changing the organization into something we don't really know. And Germany is a bit slow, let's put it this way, our headquarters, to roll this out anywhere else. We, like I said, we are learning.
Yeah. So what I would do is, the point is, with the traditional product-oriented companies, they are departmentized. So they are thinking in silos. They have their production silo, they have their marketing, they have their sales. And you need to have a common understanding of what you are doing. And if you come up, so if you start with the customer on the one hand, so you have to track it through the sales department, to the marketing department, to the production, to sourcing, and so on. So it's not that what we do right now is thinking of the production claims. So if there's any mistake, yeah, that is the sourcing department who is in charge of this, and the sales people say if sales drop, that is the product. So that is not what is allowed to do in the future. So you need, I would neither. So you suggested two possibilities. What I would start is, I would really start with making a big change, and the big change must be somewhere in the management board, and then make an project team. I don't know, to be honest, to make it, if you have international subsidiaries, it's a question how big these subsidiaries are, what the functions of the subsidiary are, but it is something, I would definitely not do it in one business unit, because if you do it only in one business unit, the other business units won't understand what you are doing, and then you are again into these kind of silos, left and right don't understand what the middle is doing. So there must be, I know that from the German Stock Exchange, they did a nice approach with the project management, different topic, but they had, I think 10% of the whole organization was organized in a very agile, what was it, a group of people who are then dedicated to different projects. And they had to follow each and every step of each project, and they ran through all different departments, through all different, so it was, more centralized approach, nevertheless then decentralized in execution. Is it understandable what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I think we have time for 2 more questions. So if you want to ask a question, you have to raise your hand. You have to use the raise your hand function. Is there somebody else? Okay. So I have so here's Diego. So he would like to ask a question. I have more. I have 2 more. So sorry, there is, I have 3 more questions. All right. So there's Diego, there's Luis. And let's say 1 more, so raise your hand now, and then we can go through the questions one by one, but I think we don't have time for more questions right now. Right, so I will unmute Diego now, and he can ask his question. Whoop. Diego? Here. Okay.
Yes, can you?
Oops. Okay, now you're here.
Thank you, Lena. Thank you, Dr. Christo, for such a amazing sharing. I work for a Chinese company, and since this year, we start all moving into the concept about design thinking, but it's been always pending. And now that people are trying to go further on this topic, I would like Dr. Christo, if there is one key advice for those who want to bring design thinking into Chinese companies or organizations.
Again, can you repeat that?
Sure. We're trying to work on design thinking into Chinese organizations. And I would like to know what would be that key advice from you for those who are trying to put the first step into this field.
So first advice would be hire local. So you have amazing people in China who are innovative and amazingly trained as well in design and innovative people. Probably what I would do is hire these Chinese people. So to understand, they understand the Chinese market. I don't know if you sell products in China or what your business is about, but
both markets is domestic market and is overseas as well.
Okay, good. So if you would like to have the Chinese market, work with Chinese experts together. So get Chinese executives trained in design thinking, and then let them put them in a position where they can drive the process. That is of utmost importance, because key point is understanding the customer. That means the Chinese customer. If you take Spanish customers, Spanish executives, and bring them to China and try to make them as managers that and drive the innovation processes might probably not work. Or so make it with local people, and then again mingle them with your people from the headquarters. That would be my main advice. So take some training sessions and train local people. Don't make it international. So don't ship Spanish people to China to do that.
Christoph, can I just, so what you mean is like really start with the top management, right? The Chinese top management, bring them together with local experts in the field.
Yeah.
Like kind of let them experience what, you know, from customer perspective, that they understand, you know, the mindset behind, and then bring it into the organization with local experts.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Because the top management has to drive it. I mean, they have to, I think they have to facilitate it from the top, unless there is, I think.
Yeah, it's not bottom up, it's not working. Yeah, right. So top down and local people, local Chinese, to understand the Chinese market.
Yes, and I would even suggest at the same time when you, I mean, when you know, train the top management, once you start into the next levels, already start to take multiplicators, or what we usually call them champions. We say, okay, identify your champions in the company that have kind of this mindset naturally already, and take them while you implement, while you start to you know, like train the next levels and really working on projects, take them already on the journey, that they really learn it together with you. So already start when you go into the next level to identify those people who are actually trained at the same time.
Totally agree.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, then thank you, Diego. Thank you, Christoph. So we have Louise. So let me just, okay. So Louise, I will unmute you now. Yeah.
Okay.
Louise?
Now, hello. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, thanks a lot for Dr. Christoph, and thanks for Elena to give me this opportunity to raise the question. So this is my first time to hear about this design thinking, this vocabulary. We know this is about innovation, and me personally, I work in an automotive company. This is a Spanish one. The name is Group Antolin, and we are doing the auto interiors. So for us, the design is really, really important to get our customer. So after listening all this today's meeting, I would like to ask, first of all, I would like to know whether design thinking means customer oriented. Is this means that we need to provide the products exactly what customers like or meet their expectation? So this is my first question. And if yes, I would like to know, because if we would like to get to know what customers like, we need to have the big data as support. So for that, we need to do a lot of investment in order to really go to our customers and get to know the people that what they really need. So is this the quickest way to get to know the customer's needs? Or if not, what could be the quickest or the direct way to get to know our people, to get to know our potential customers and their needs? Thanks.
Good question. So first of all, yes, from a theoretical and practical perspective, yes, sure. If customers have different needs and you can fulfill the needs, you should do that. So there's no question about that. It's not that, again, pushing product in the markets and the customer take then the products even though they don't need it. I don't think that you need to work with big data. I think it is, design thinking is very, again, user-centered and individual, or in the observation phase. What you can do is you can just grab some key customers and make a user journey with them. You can ask them, can we just make a test drive with you and see how they act in the car, what they say while they are driving, how they behave. So you need some specially trained people who know how to do these observations, but you don't necessarily need big data for that. So it's sometimes it's just following customers on their journey, how they use things and how they use automotive, so autos, cars, then probably, trained people see what are the customer needs. Probably you can also ask them. Sometimes they don't know what they want. It's better to observe them or then to identify what their needs are. But yeah, so in particular in the automotive industry, I just asked yesterday my colleague, we had a workshop on service innovation. And for me, it's really, I ask myself why Volkswagen and Mercedes and BMW are still so successful, because they still produce these cars which probably are not. So for me, look at young people in Berlin, for example. It's probably the same in Shanghai. Do you really need a car? No, you need a kind of transportation, and probably there's something else behind that. So you need to understand what people want. If they want a car, okay, then think about the interior design of the car. If they need something to commute, then probably they use the car only as a bubble to come from A to B. But what is in the meantime? What are they doing? What do they want to do while they drive? That is a question. Maybe in the future we have autonomous driving. So think about what kind of services can you offer while they are driving and they are not having the steer wheel anymore in their heads. So that is what we need to think about, and what is the next level there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Can I just add on the big data? I really like that question. I want to add on. So my experience is also, if you have big data already available, use it. Okay. Have an indication of where maybe the market needs are going to, but then, as Christoph said, then pick the key customers and dig deep and observe, ask them, okay, why are you actually doing this in the car, right? So just try to take it as an indication, the big data, but then really engage and interact with the key customers.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Yeah, all right. So our time is really, so in 2 minutes, the webinar will just automatically turn off. I'm really sorry. So I hope we can do this again in the future with Christoph and the participants here in China, and maybe also participants from Germany. Just to kind of summarize, because I think I didn't talk about this before, the timeline of the program, for the public program. So for the first levels, we will have 2 dates. So one is in January, 25th to 28th. It's always Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, because I know people in China love to study on the weekend. And the second date is February 22nd to 25th. And then for level 2, it will happen in Q2, as well as level 3 will happen in Q2. So for those 2 levels, we still will publish the dates. And last but not least, the program is supported by industry who already implemented design thinking or is just basically in the moment to do it. So one is Brose, automotive, or automotive supplier, do a lot of interiors as well. So Mr. Göckete, he is really a driver in Brose China to implement design thinking, and they started with the pre-R&D process to make the pre-R&D process more agile, more fast. And I think they're already pretty successful with it. Of course, they're still at an implementation stage, so it will still take a little bit to really bring it into the whole organization. And on the other hand, we have Dr. Bettina Maisch. She is a senior key expert and consultant from Siemens and also lecturer at St. Gallen University, who actually implemented design thinking or industrial design thinking in Siemens in Beijing in 2012. So she was the driving force behind in China, and together with the local CEO at that time. And both of them will also give inspiration talks during the program in the evenings, and we might even have an opportunity to basically visit their organizations and really learn based on their case studies as well. So this is to wrap it off. So we really have also very excited people from industry on board, and where you can also learn from, of course, and get into exchange. And for all of you who, basically I will share the presentations with all of you, and later we will also share the recorded webinar. So that's it from our side. I really want to thank you a lot to do this on a Friday evening. Christoph, do you want to say a final word from Bremen?
Yeah, thanks a lot for participating, listening to what we say, what we have said, and I would like to see you in Bremen, probably the second half of, second quarter of 2019.
Yeah, or maybe Christoph is coming to China.
Yeah,
you have a customized program for your company, then he is coming to China.
Yeah.
Because only Christoph can give certifications. He will be the guy who will really hand over the diplomas.
Yeah, it's Jakob.
And will assess you if you really deserve the diplomas.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Then thank you. Unfortunately, I cannot see you right now, but thank you very much. Thank you, Christoph.
Thank you, Elena.
And I wish you all a great weekend. And yeah, hopefully I will talk to you probably next week. Okay.
Thank you.
Good. I will close the webinar now. So let me see how this works. Yeah. So goodbye.
Goodbye.